There's so many broken things about the world of blockchain games that you say, well, that's a bug that needs to be fixed. But also it's the thing that's sort of interesting about it. So sure, there's some things that don't quite add up when you write it all down and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that also is the thing that makes it interesting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Metacast Roundtable by Naavik. And today I'm joined by chicken butterflyer Nico Vereecke.
That sounds weird now.
Co-host. I know, right? Co-host
Chicken
of the Metacast.
What is that about?
Okay, first, we'll tell about this. Let Maria continue her intro, because otherwise she's going to lose her train of thought. And then I'll explain my chicken butterflying, okay?
I've lost it. Co-host of the Metacast. Yeah. Just let me finish this phrase, because I am losing it. Investor at Bitcraft, Abhimanyu Kumar, co-founder at Naavik, and David Amor, CEO at Playment. Okay, we did it.
Okay.
Don't we get like some, animal spirit names or?
You can see that Manu joined our call late. We were hanging out for like 15 minutes before he joined. Okay, so chicken butter.
Shame.
So I'm responsible for dinner tonight, and the way I like to
You're making butter
make my chicken.
Yes.
It's not butter chicken.
No.
It's slightly different.
Damn it.
Okay. So cooking tip, it's amazing. I got this from the book, The Food Lab, which is a fantastic book, by the way. Anyway, so you take a chicken. The problem with the chicken is if you get like a whole chicken, you can put stuff in there. But the problem is that the legs will roast way faster than the breast. And so that's the problem. So what I do is I butterfly my chicken, which means you cut out the spine and then you press it flat. And so it looks very flat. And because it's in that shape, then all of the different parts, which actually also should cook at different temperatures because they have more or less amount of fat and connective tissue. Yeah. I mean, cooking is science, my friend. And then so what I do is, I do that, and then I make a kind of brine, like a thing, and then I rub that underneath the skin, not on top of the skin. Underneath the skin is way better. And then I put that chicken on top of vegetables, and then I put the whole thing in the oven. And so then you have the fat that renders, and then it cooks the vegetables, and it's amazing. And so anyway,
this was the first topic.
Yes.
Reverse, I'd like cut Nico's video, I think. Just like it's passed on all the details.
All right. Games.
Wow, what an intro.
I know.
Man, maybe next week I can like share my butter chicken recipe also.
Calm down.
Oh, I could share my liquid meal heel recipe.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like you put the powder in a shaker, you put some water in, and you shake it.
There's a shaking technique.
Oh.
You have to get the shaking right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious. All right. I'm intrigued.
Chicken butterfly.
I know. Before we move on to the first topic, I just want to do a shout out that you can subscribe to the Naavik Digest for free. And you can get a roundup of all of the insights. This past week, we did a deep dive into Yuga Labs and the future of the Yugaverse and App 11 changing its course. So that was interesting. You can go to the Naavik website and read past articles. And now, David, you have the first topic.
More cooking recipes. I haven't got a lot, to be honest. All right, let's move on. So the first topic is EA, right? Some interesting set of headlines suggesting that EA are pursuing a sale of some kind. So first surfaced in a publication I hadn't heard of called Puck, which, anyway. But it talked quite matter-of-factly, taken from 4 independent sources, that EA had almost got over the line in a merger with NBC Universal, not quite agreeing something or other toward the end. But I mean, that really felt like it was about to happen, didn't quite. But also that they've been speaking to Disney in March, so not long ago, talking to Disney, to Apple, to Amazon. And so it seems that some kind of merger or acquisition is on the cards for EA sometime this year, which I suppose isn't too much of a surprise. It was something on this podcast, I've been surprised that they haven't been acquired by someone like Disney already. Seems like a good idea, but feels like that's on the cards for that company. Probably makes sense. And I suppose, Yeah, I'm going to do a little quiz for my other podcast.
Oh no, the teacher is back.
Oh, the professor is back.
Yeah, the professor. Oh, I have to get my hand up in the air. Okay.
No, look, this is going to be fun. It's a quiz. So what do you think is... I was looking at what EA's biggest franchises are in terms of volumes of games sold. What do you think is their biggest one, first of all?
FIFA.
Come on, this is easy. It's not a quiz. What do you say?
FIFA.
FIFA is number one. What's number two? Shall I give it to you? It's The Sims.
The Sims.
Then Madden. Then The Sims, man. That's a big IP. Then Madden, then Need for Speed, then Apex Legends. I mean, they've got. It's a reminder to me that they actually have some great IP. Now, I guess FIFA isn't FIFA anymore, but nonetheless, I could go on a longer list and talk about a bunch of game franchises that you're familiar with. My point is that if you're a media company, then having a bunch of IP that's really familiar, like embedded in the culture of the world, or at least the Western world, is a pretty powerful thing to bring into the fold. I suppose one of the things that I thought was interesting there was that all of those that I just said, NBC Universal, which is part of Comcast, and Disney and Apple and Amazon, none of those are games companies. And I wonder whether or not it's EA wanting to sort of remain at the helm of the games business. Maybe Andrew Wilson is saying, hey, I'd like to be part of something bigger and capitalize on that, but still we want to be running the game, have some autonomy in the games part if that happens. Thoughts on that?
Is that the main difference between merging versus being acquired? You maintain control?
No, I think in that NBC Universal, or at least Comcast, is a $180 billion company, and EA is $36 billion. So, I mean, it's much bigger than EA. So I don't know if it's technically a merger or not, but ultimately one is much bigger than the other.
Are you saying, David, that's one of the reasons it doesn't want to be acquired by a games company? Is that if it gets acquired by a non-games company, everyone in charge will still be most knowledgeable about games and are not at risk of being replaced or being made redundant? Is that what you're saying?
I think there's some ego there. I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing.
Yes.
But why isn't it Embracer? Why isn't it Sony? Why isn't it Microsoft? Is it a coincidence that all of the names that have been put forward so far from seems like quite well-informed sources, none of those are larger games companies? So perhaps, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think Oh, you go, Manu.
No, go for it. Right.
Manu? Oh, okay. And do you think this is why they didn't renew the FIFA license? To cut a potential cost and look better for merger acquisition?
No, I don't think so. I think that FIFA are getting greedy. Also a problem, as I just mentioned, that FIFA is never going to be owned as an IP by EA. FIFA is always going to be FIFA, and there's a FIFA game, but maybe it's maybe that's more them asking for too much and EA not seeing that much value when they don't get to completely own the IP. They just get to be a licensee of that.
Right. Okay. Manu, you were going to say?
Yeah, I mean, even on the FIFA topic specifically, I haven't really looked at the specific details of it, but I guess there's a difference between, or the specific mechanics of it, but I guess there's a difference between, being able to use the FIFA name in the game name versus being able to showcase all the different, the teams and all those attached players. Those would be just two separate relationships. And I mean, EA, FIFA specifically, the number of years or the number of iterations that game has gone through, I mean, the gameplay is at a point where I feel it's unparalleled in terms of, just quality of play. And if EA is just able to kind of keep that relationship with those different leagues, then, it does the FIFA name really matter? I think they're planning to call it FC or something, right? EA football, EA soccer, EA football, FC, something like that. But yeah, I mean, just coming back to this, to the whole merger topic. Yeah, I guess the way I saw it, and to your point, David, about the IPs, probably EA at this point is asking itself the question, like, how does it like continue to stay relevant in a world where now scale is just becoming super important? Embracer buying up all these different developers and inching closer and closer towards or like as a competitor to EA. The whole Activision buyout that happened now with Microsoft, and now Take-Two also getting Zynga, and EA is now thinking about how they continue to stay relevant. Consoles like still makes up PC and consoles still makes a majority of their revenues. Mobile is still like a fledgling business, I would say. Like, I'm not even sure like how well the whole Glue integration is actually going, and yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that's why like they're also like talking to the media companies that actually have all these IPs, which they can essentially convert into introduce like the games audience to those IPs and just convert into like really big games businesses.
Yeah, probably both ways. I would imagine that a media company could do good things with The Sims. And I think that EA could do, as they have, good things with a Star Wars license. So I guess that it makes sense. I think for me, EA have lost some of its shine. Full disclosure, I was at EA from 1993 to 2001. In fact, I was in the cube next to when we first started making FIFA. So FIFA 94, I think it was called EA Soccer at the time. So I go back away with EA. And I think at that time, the reason I joined EA, because it was doing things ahead of other companies and was really forward thinking and was always on the new trend. I remember they were releasing or being involved with the release of 3DO, which is like an amazing, interesting new console that didn't go the distance. But the point is they were trying new things, and they were late to social, really late to mobile. Seemingly the board didn't really like mobile or look down on it. But as a result, they're way, way behind. And EA used to be completely lead the field on that stuff. So I'd like to see a merger that somehow re-energizes EA in some way, if that's possible.
Yeah. On the other hand, EA was voted, and I believe these are the employees that vote in gamesindustry.biz best places to work, and EA won one of the best places to work in the United States. At least from that perspective, the culture and happiness of their employees seems great.
Yeah, but sometimes, I don't know, I treat those surveys with a bit of cynicism. Just because it's a nice environment to work doesn't mean to say the business is doing great things. I mean,
exactly, yeah. I was just looking at the bright side.
and like EA's done tons of great things in the past, so I'm not giving EA a hard time, but in a way, I think it would be good to be part of a bigger games company to re-energize EA, rather than just sort of slip in behind some media conglomerate.
Yeah, that's true. I think
the other company I was thinking about, like potentially acquiring EA, was Netflix, but then I realized, okay, EA is probably too big for an acquisition for Netflix at this point. But yeah,
I don't know. Bold prediction.
Yeah.
Somebody,
probably.
What do you think
I guess
of
like
Apple?
I think Apple. If yeah.
I was going to say, so Apple bringing out their glasses or AR, VR, etc. I think is fairly clear by now. They need a bit of a boost, don't they, in terms of ability to create engaging content that isn't just linear media. So I wonder, I don't think it's going to happen, by the way, but Apple are a little bit behind in this stuff, and maybe they need a bit of a shot in the arm in terms of 3D content for their new glasses.
My one concern with Apple was just a fundamental, like just a difference between their ethos or their thinking behind how games should be monetized, and that being like diametrically opposite for EA now, given like most of its revenue is like live services based, versus Apple that wants to go, like doubling down on Apple Arcade and things like that. And that was like my one, like it just wouldn't be like a good, business model to culture fit, I felt. And that's why I kind of struck Apple off my list. But
so each one of us, who do you think is the best bedfellow for what if you were in charge of EA? Who would you be trying to do a deal with?
I actually thought the whole NBC Universal was like a pretty good choice, just given like all the IPs that they have access to. But I mean, that seems to have fallen through. Disney has been trying to like has been like getting into the games business, out of the games business, and now it's like mostly focused on like licensing out its IPs. Maybe there's something there, and maybe that would be my second choice. But
Lego's bringing more of their game development into Lego, so Disney could be trying to do something similar potentially, gain more from instead of just licensing, but also developing by acquiring. Could be.
Yeah, as Manu says, Disney come and go into the games industry. I don't really understand why. Games is such a large entertainment business. Why is Disney still licensing everything out? Why does it sort of go all in and then go back out again? And maybe it needs a bigger play to get going rather than trying to spin up something internally. Maybe an acquisition the size of EA, which isn't enormous. It's a lot smaller than $36 billion for EA and $70 billion for Activision. So about half an Activision. But it would be a good kickstart to start somebody's interactive or games business. For someone like Disney or NBC.
The weird one I found was Amazon, though. Like, I don't know why they would be talking. Like, what does Amazon have to offer? Or maybe on Prime, like maybe there are like original IPs over there that Amazon could kind of bring to the table. But that felt like the weirdest fit.
Well, isn't this a content... I've heard on this podcast talk about the fact that Netflix isn't competing with other TV shows. It's competing with screen time, with anything else. So Netflix is competing with Fortnite, for instance. And so the rationale for Netflix to get involved with games is like, let's make sure we have offerings for people that want to play something interactive. So the rationale I would say, and it seems like Amazon and NBC and Apple, they're all sort of competing for trying to create content subscription for people. But so maybe it's something to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like all of that does make sense, but and EA can like bring a lot of value to Amazon, but like what does Amazon bring EA in return? And that's what
true.
That's what I kind of like. I was kind of hiccuping on that a little bit. Maybe they have like some, I haven't looked into it, but maybe they have like original IPs or like significant relevant ones on Prime. But yeah, that one just felt off a little bit comparing to like NBC Universal,
Amazon found the sweet spot with Lost Ark because they brought their publishing learnings and successfully published Lost Ark in the Western market. I think that worked very successfully. So I'd see them doubling down on that strategy instead of trying to lean into developing more games internally, especially with EA being a powerhouse in publishing as well. I don't see Amazon being able to bring that knowledge and support EA.
Either way, I think an acquisition of some kind or a merger, whatever you want to call it, potatoes, is coming for EA, you would think, later this year. I'd be surprised, having tried to have those conversations with 4 companies, that they're not getting further with. It sounds like a strategic plan for EA to be acquired or merged. So you would expect that to happen at some point this year.
And on the topic of investment, we can go to Nico's spicy topic.
All right. So context, or the topic is Circle DAO Proposal to Remove YGG as a Seed Investor. So there's a lot of relevant words there. So what inspired this is a post. So Merit Circle is a gaming guild. Gaming guilds, I think the first major gaming guild that became famous was YGG, Yield Guild Games, and Merit Circle is another gaming guild. And so the goal of a gaming guild is essentially to within the play to earn or play and earn world, guilds want to be the groups of individuals that together own assets. So gaming assets that can then be used by guild members within different games to either just play the game or potentially even earn a return on investments. And so, at YGG and I think Merit Circle are both very active within Axie Infinity. They own a lot of Axies and they rent those out to their scholars, as they call it. And then the scholars can play the game. And then there's a revenue split on the SLP. That is then the token that the players themselves earn by using the Axies. So that's what guilds are. Merit Circle is a DAO. This is a decentralized autonomous organization. And it means that there is a token, which in this case is the Merit Circle token, that governs a treasury and that also essentially governs the organization. And so there are a lot of DAO members and contributors. And the goal of a DAO is to, allow anyone in the community to make a proposal that can then be put up for a vote. So anyone that owns a Merit Circle token or any token that is related to a DAO can vote on. And so I think that's enough context. And so what happened? Merit Circle did their seed raise, I think last year or maybe early this year, of I think about $5 million. And YGG, which is another guild, took part in that seed raise. So YGG invested $175,000. Now, Merit Circle DAO members do not consider YGG to be helpful as an investor, especially not in contrast to other of the investors that took part in that round. And some, investors that came up in the discussion are Maven 11. They're based in the Netherlands, and they have Mechanism Capital and Defiance Capital. And so, what happens, and this is a few weeks ago, I think the Merit Circle people asked the seed investors to tell or at least publicly say what they helped with as a seed investor. And so YGG did not make the cut compared to the other investors. And so now one member of the community, not necessarily like a leadership member, but made a proposal to pay YGG back its initial investments and recover the tokens that were allocated to YGG. The tokens, although the Merit Circle token, I think at its top was like $11 or $12. Now it's around $1, so it got reduced a lot. Is still up 32x compared to the initial seed investment valuation. And so, I think this is absolutely fascinating, right? So, very like in summary, right? TLDR, you have a DAO which got investments initially before the community was being built. And one of these seed investors is supposedly not living up to expectations, and now there's a proposal to kick them out. So yeah, I think this is interesting. Also, for full disclosure, I believed in YGG early. When their token went public, I bought some tokens, and then later I joined Bitcraft, who is also an investor. So I'm involved with YGG. I'm a fan of what they do, but I think this is interesting. Love the dynamics here in general, although I don't necessarily agree with the sentiment, but we love your take as well. David, you recently raised a round. How do you think about seed investors that add little value to what happens, or investors in general? And what do you think about this stuff?
Yeah, I think it's a good spicy topic, isn't it? It's like people washing their dirty laundry in public. Yeah, maybe that's what DAOs are about. Everything gets decided in the open. Yeah, I think that when you're taking investment, historically, you'd just be happy to take people's money. I think or at least as was a couple of months ago, then certainly it seemed that a lot of things, there was more investment money than there was things to invest in. And therefore, people that were looking to get investment, like me, had an amazingly a situation where we could actually pick who to take money from, and the criteria by which that you might use is who adds value to who's good to have on speed dial here. But there's no real expectation that, hey, if you don't offer value, or if you don't do what you said you were going to do, then there's some sort of right to apply. So, and I don't think there is here either. I'd be really surprised if in the legal paperwork it says, look, if you don't help out, then we're going to ask for we're going to give you your money back. Mm-hmm. I'd also say that it's $175,000. Is that what you said, of a $5 million raise? So it's a tiny amount. So I think, and it's not from a leadership team, as far as I can tell, of Merit Circle. Mm-hmm. So if anything, it feels like a bit of posturing from a community member in Merit Circle saying, YGG don't do anything for us. We're better DAO than they are. Mm-hmm. In fact, you can have your tokens back if you want. Yeah. And it's just sort of throwing them into a bit of shade. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And so go ahead, Maria.
And there might be soft contributions as well, having a new company connected to YGG, which was, at least for me, the first guild that I became aware of. It almost brings maybe a seal of trust and of interest. So even though you can't really quantify the help, you did get that marketing boost by being associated with YGG.
100%.
Plus the initial capital. I mean, that in itself is just help, right? Like that 175K, even though it might be like a small number, but that in itself is like something that, the value of which can be multiplied, that benefits Merit Circle for multiple years. So,
I think, I think I agree. There's one other thing that's not discussed that I haven't heard yet, but I think there's, it's easy in retrospect to say like you didn't help, but there are worlds in which, if Merit Circle was in trouble, YGG could have helped, right? But they weren't in trouble, so they didn't help. There's always this optionality that happens, and then in retrospect, like that path wasn't like followed. So, I think this is relatively short-sighted, and I don't think there's any legal basis. There's nothing going to happen here. It's just something interesting. And what I like about this is one, people are involved.
There is something
right?
going to happen. It has like moved to the voting stage. Merit Circle like has agreed to like move it to voting.
Okay.
And
yes.
Looking at all the comments.
Yes.
It's tilting towards a yes.
Well, I mean, I guess but the voting is weighted by how many tokens you own, right? So I'm just saying that the number of comments do not necessarily represent
that's fair.
The amount of tokens that are going to be put on certain votes. That's one. I also think that within this DAO, I don't think there's a legal base to give them back their tokens, right? It just doesn't work that way. Give them back their money and
that's where I got confused. Like, if that legal base does not exist, then like why would Merit Circle like agree to move it to voting? Because I mean, if it does turn out as a yes, then that action needs to be taken.
Well, so. I think this is the interesting part. I think there's a lot of signaling here, which is not bad. One, I think this might be a subtle move for Merit Circle to position itself like more separate from YGG or maybe more as a rival. I think I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I think this might be a wake-up call. And I actually really like that community members are now also kind of involved and can see what's going on with seed investors. Is there any other example where one of the community members around the game suddenly is, angry about the involvement of seed investors in that company, right? That doesn't happen. And so I really like that people are actually thinking around these things. Although I don't necessarily agree with the thoughts. I think it's good that, these things are being put into question, and maybe it's a wake-up call. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's it's something similar to equity when you start a company, where when you sit in a room and you're just four people deciding what feels like a fair split of the company. Now, it's really hard to work out and sort of uncomfortable to work out because you have to say how much value that you're going to bring. You can't then in 3 or 5 years' time say, oh, but you didn't actually give me that much value to the company. In fact, you quickly snuck into the background, and therefore we need to look at that equity again. No, that equity is what felt right at the time, and you can't just continually adjust it according to what's happened afterwards. That's just not how it works. That equity is what got you started in the first place, and you can conjure up all sorts of parallel universes where this and that happened, but you sort of have a commitment, I think, to stick to what seemed right back when you first talked about it. Otherwise, you're forever adjusting it and according to what's happening on the day. I don't think you can't think of ownership of projects or companies in that way.
Maybe it is a new way of thinking. I'm very confused on my feelings on all of this, by the way. I'm exploring the devil's advocate, because blockchain and Web3 is meant to disrupt the status quo of how things work. And perhaps this is a good thing, where it's going to change the commitment and having to stay true to what you agree to when you made an agreement or there was a business proposal or something. You have to stick through it and deliver, or else these consequences might happen. Maybe that's a good thing.
There is a structure for that. If you think that there's important things that a particular party should be doing as part of their investment, and it's X, Y, and Z, then put that into the agreement that says you need to do X, Y, and Z. That's the value that you're bringing as well as the money.
Yes.
But if that wasn't stipulated and it was just sort of vague, I hope you can support what we do, then that's... I understand what you're saying, Maria. I think it would be nice to see things shake up a little bit and how that works, but I think there are mechanisms to deal with that somewhat already.
And I actually think that these mechanisms, instead of putting it in the agreements, can be... Because I really like how you're thinking, Maria, and I actually think that, okay, I'm the crypto guy here, but blockchain actually might offer a solution for this, where one of the concerns why you want to put stuff on paper is, you want to make sure that it can't be changed negatively for you in the future by people that might at that point hold control over the company and stuff like that. And so one of the cool things that can happen in a world or in a blockchain with a DAO is that you could, for example, code in where, so every investor, let's say, gets a certain amount of tokens, and then at the end of every year, there is a slice, and then the DAO gets to vote on, or like there's a proposal made about, okay, how many tokens go to all of the contributors, and these contributors could be, investors, but they could also be just, DAO members and core contributors that actually help build up Merit Circle, and then the DAO can have a vote on whether that's fair, and you can see this technology of voting and people actually having value and contributing value being used to more fairly reward people that actually help out and so I think I think at some point we'll be in a world like that. I don't think we'll ever be there completely, because there's also another world in which you lock tokens and so where you can put into code what you're going to do, and if you do it, the smart contracts automatically grants you your tokens, right? And in that way everything is automated. I don't think we're ever going to go towards a world like that, but I think we can go in that direction where there's less uncertainty and more focus on people receive actually what they earned and they get rewarded for the value that they bring.
I guess my biggest pro, or like some of the bigger pros were, first of all, this is probably like the most public display of a DAO in action, and I really enjoyed like going through all the comments and just seeing like people debate between themselves and, just learning about new things while they're debating and just like figuring out like how the machine actually functions. But one pro was like just seeing this DAO in action. If the vote, actually, even it doesn't even matter probably what the result of the vote is, but to your guys' point, it does like put a message out from Merit Circle's perspective that like they have, or the community they're supporting has a pretty high bar for like partners or investors. Like if someone is going to be becoming a partner or an investor or a seed investor with Merit Circle, then you better be like, playing your part. And I think that messaging is like super clear out there. Sorry, there was one more point I wanted to make. So I've written it, but I can't understand my handwriting anymore. But getting back to con.
I've been there, man. While you try to decide,
now I understand my handwriting. But yeah, the point was, apart from like sending a message to like potential partners and investors, it also sends a message to like the broader ecosystem, like just Plato and ecosystem and broader DAOs of how this thing can function, because the whole operational aspect of DAOs is still like a big question mark, and everyone is trying to like find their footing, right? And like how to make it function in the best possible manner. And like this is probably the most public display of like one way it could potentially work. The one con I felt was like just questioning whether the sum of the parts of YGG and Merit Circle would have actually, like, if the vote becomes yes, and for some reason, the partnership was to break, would it have actually been better for the entire play and earn blockchain gaming ecosystem if both these entities were together? Because one of the key aspects of the partnership was, the sharing of assets when demand for those assets is higher. At the end of the day, YGG and Merit Circle are definitely competitors. Both of them have like around between 4 and 5K scholars each, I think. So they're pretty equal like that. And then when the demand for these assets is going to outstrip like potential supply, then like, sharing of these assets between the entities and creating like a revenue share agreement over there is actually better for the one entity that actually matters, which are the people who are the scholars, And now if like these two entities are like, because of some community guy who's, posturing or signaling or whatever, like, there are people in the Philippines who are getting affected by this. And that I felt like that was probably like a one potential con, which just kind of hits at the root of like why these guilds even exist, and like the value they actually bring to the ecosystem. And but yeah, that was like one con I thought of.
That just made me think about company culture, where you have a company, you set your cultural values from the founders, and everyone that you hire, everyone that's part of the company has to embody and evangelize those values. How do you do that in a DAO? Because even if Merit Circle said these are all values, be part of this community, by being token based, how can you ensure that everyone who makes a proposal has to make a proposal that takes into consideration how it affects the scholars? And does this make any sense?
I feel like
the more decentralized it is a decentralized autonomous organization, and the more decentralized it is, in an ideal scenario, and probably the way it's supposed to be implemented, is those values or like maintaining those values is de-risked because it is decentralized. The more parties that actually are there or involved in the decision-making process, the more the chance that those values are upheld, and it's not like based on a single person, or at least that's how I would think about it. But.
Interesting. I feel like DAOs are essentially a new way for people to work together, and we're still figuring so much stuff out that it feels like culture is almost one of the last things that we as humans have figured out when we started working together, where it's first get shit done, and then get shit done in like a sustainable way where we all agree and actually like to work together. Maybe I'm wrong, right? But I feel like from what I've seen in DAOs, there's a lot of focus. Like the culture is almost the crypto culture, where it's all very open, very decentralized, very open. But apart from that, I haven't seen much other culture, like separate culture, like you mentioned, Maria, where we focus on our guild members. That's key, and everything should reflect that. But it's a good question.
Yeah, but your YGG has a ton of culture. Like you can really feel it. I mean, I don't know quite how they achieve that, but it certainly feels a certain way. So they've been able to achieve it in their DAO, even though they're fully remote and operate in a different way. So it's certainly possible, but
you're right.
Don't know how.
Yeah. One last point I want to make, and this is kind of separate, but it's something that they kept pushing on in the proposal. Can I mention, like, can we go on a small tangent, Maria?
We still have Manu's topic.
Okay.
Is it 1 minute? Is it
no, it's not
quick?
1 minute. It's longer.
Is it about chicken?
It's not about chicken. Okay, let's
Go
give
for
it. Maybe
Like, I like
maybe
Nico's tangent.
no. This is. I feel like
No?
this is.
Too much of a
I'm going to
tangent?
touch upon this in the crypto corner sometime. It merits its own discussion, I feel.
Okay.
And now
put,
you got me curious.
Nico, you should put it in the Discord, and then there's like bonus content in the Discord for.
Anyway, so it's about. So I'll tell you. We don't talk about it. I'll just hint at what the subject is.
It.
So one of the complaints that is being made is that YGG spins out a lot of sub DAOs. So YGG, there's IndieGG, and there's a bunch of other YGG sub DAOs which are location specific. And so one of the comments or concerns that the people here had is that this dilutes the value of YGG because they're just fundraising and, or getting more funds, and it dilutes the value of the YGG token. And so, I'd love to have a conversation about that because I think that's really interesting. But we're not doing that. So with this, I give the floor to Manu, and I'll keep that for another time.
Crypto Corner, Battle of the DAOs.
Ooh.
Some kind of DAO roundup.
Yes,
would be fun.
It's okay. For me, it's more than a more than a DAO thing. It's more like a okay. Good.
Well, Anil's company, First Light Games, partnered with Merit Circle for Blast Royale, so maybe he could be a good guest for that discussion. Just before we move on, you were very impressed with my way of thinking. Did you think Maria GMI? Come on, Nico.
DAO should think about culture first instead of culture last.
I think Maria.
Even I'm impressed.
Look, I think it's gonna be more rewarding for you at some point when you do like something insane that really, really impresses me, and it, right? So I'm impressed, but I'm not gonna tell you Maria's GMI yet.
I'll tell you what it is, Maria. You need to like do the chicken butterfly.
Yes.
Really
I
well.
do a great I do a great chicken dance.
Maria, tonight
So
you're gonna drink liquid food. Sorry, your NGMI. That's what I think about that.
And the context here is that Maria's been fishing for a GMI from Nico for a little while now, hoping to get it.
He keeps telling me NGMI.
Yeah, well, don't beg for it,
No.
Maria. That's not the way to get it. Okay.
You'll get there, I'm sure. You're on the right track.
Play hard to get with the GMIs. They'll come.
Oh, okay. Should be harder to get. Yep. Manu, what do you have today?
All right. So last topic of the day. There's a new article that's been doing the rounds, and it's written by. You guys might have to help me with his last name, Nat Eliason, I think.
I've been saying Eliason. Why I might be wrong.
Eliason.
Okay.
Eliason.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know.
Eliason. Okay. Yeah. And anyway, so he's been like really blowing up in the, crypto gaming writing scene at the moment. A lot of really great thoughts and just back to back, awesome posts. He's also an advisor at crypto traders, and he's assisting them with like game economy and tokenomics. Crypto traders in itself is also a really good game. So, this article he wrote about the current problems in crypto gaming and, potential solutions. And the title of the article is Crypto Gaming is Broken. How do we fix it? And coming from, the advisor of crypto traders, which is like, pretty like a core crypto gaming experience, So, but yeah, just to kind of like summarize, he didn't really have like a key, like thesis, like a red line across the whole article. He more kind of like structured it as, here are like 7 problems that I see in crypto gaming right now, and here are like 9 solutions that we could be thinking about implementing into the future. And all these 7 problems, I'm really glad, like, someone actually wrote it, because a lot of these conversations are happening behind the scenes and no one is, talking about it publicly. And he, like, in very simple words, he was able to just capture a lot of those conversations in text. So I would highly recommend the read. I won't go over like all of it, but in general, I agree with a lot of what he's saying. So I thought maybe I could focus on some of the points where I maybe disagreed a little bit after giving him all the praise. So again, I highly recommend the piece. But on the problems side of it, there were 2 very interesting points that he made. One is NFTs set a bad precedent for games, and the second is DeFi set a bad precedent for games. And both of these points are connected to, both NFTs and DeFi or DeFi mechanics like staking or yield farming. Because crypto games have or like a lot of the early crypto games originated from crypto native teams, they have like taken a lot of those scarcity mechanics from that proper values of NFTs and also yield farming and staking mechanics that are used in DeFi over to like the game space, and they're implementing it in the same way, and it's now hurting the game space more than it's actually helping. Maybe it like had a little bit of a initial hype and a lot of people were able to make a lot of profit on that, but Nat's thinking is like we should move away from that kind of a thinking longer term. And for example, not like one of his recommendations is to do away with staking completely. I guess my only I would probably just reframe what he says a little bit to more of, I feel like there's still, so for example, like the NFT set a bad precedent in games. His point is, it's all about like scarcity, and you can't like, create a strong community just by offering, 10,000 NFTs at the start. But on the flip side, there is actually, or it's proven that, that scarcity can be monetized really well. But maybe there's just a better balance in terms of, how many of those NFTs are actually available for people to actually get in early. So my takeaway from this wouldn't be like, we should like NFT set a bad precedent for games. It's more that they have set a precedent, but you can still kind of use it as design inspiration to kind of build on it and find a better balance, because there is definitely value in scarcity. But to achieve like, more adoption early on, or to achieve like more adoption early on, or to achieve, initial funding for your like future plans, there is still value in like having that scarcity early on. So yeah, that was like my one point, just to like still get inspired from some of those mechanics, but maybe maintain a better balance. And yeah, the second point, and then I'll stop talking. But on the DeFi point, he was talking about staking, like, and staking in itself is it's a complete Ponzi loop, or yield farming specifically is a complete Ponzi loop. Staking is probably a little bit more better. And the recommendation is like completely do away with staking. But again, I would say that, there are games right now that have actually implemented staking in a way that is not really the Ponzi loop part of it. And they have been able to take inspiration from how staking works, but applying it more in a fitting game context. So the takeaway, I feel, shouldn't be like do away with staking, but rather it's an opportunity to embrace the tech and what it enables in terms of a mechanic, and then you can kind of like reshape it to kind of fit in a games space. So for example, it is entirely possible to like purchase an NFT early on and then stake it, and then while it is staking, it's actually gaining in-game utility that can be like used when the game actually launches. For example, a character leveling up while it's been staked. I mean, that's like, I feel that would still completely work, and you get the upside of the initial investment for the NFTs, and like the NFT itself will continue to grow in value because in-game utility is actually increasing over time and until the game launches. And third, the person who actually staked the NFT retains until the game launches and propagates to like broader community, hey, come and check out this game. Like there's so many upsides of that mechanic. So like doing away with staking just felt like off a little bit. But yeah, anyway, I'll stop talking. But I just generally felt like, though, yeah, a lot of the problems that he identified are definitely problems. But in terms of takeaways, I wouldn't be like super harsh about like completely doing away with things, but rather using them as a foundation to stand on and like reframing things so that you can use the technology in new ways in a gaming context.
I got a lot to say about this, but as resident DJ, I want to hear what Nico has to say first.
All right, thanks. No, I think I generally agree with Manyu's takes and Nat's takes, although I would probably frame them differently. I think, saying NFTs set a bad precedent for games and DeFi set a bad precedent for games, I would frame it like the way I would say it is the way NFTs and DeFi have been used in games are suboptimal and are being over-indexed on. And so it feels like what he says, and I think everyone agrees, right? This whole dynamic of 10,000 NFTs, which I think was spearheaded, was this with the punks? I don't even know where that started, but it started somewhere with there, right?
PFP projects. Yeah,
exactly. So it's funny how this number and this range of between 1,000 and 10,000 is suddenly like the go-to initial mint. And so what the reason why I agree is I feel like, so for me, blockchain adds a value layer on top of the internet. That's the thing that you'll hear me say much more that I've said a few times already. And this allows game builders to do interesting things, right? And so for me, an example like a staking mechanism is, for me, it is you're locking up value and you're committing to not moving that value for a certain amount of time. And so these are all economic primitives that you can play around with and you can build something around, right? Before this, it was hard to have a native value integration into your game, which opens up the game immediately to the broader economy, right? That was pretty hard. And now through this blockchain technology, it's possible. And so for me, I see too many pitches of projects that are looking at what has been done by companies like Axie or others and using that as a source of inspiration. And so my frustration is I want to see more experimentation. I want to see people, do things that haven't been done and do crazy, interesting experiments. And so one example that I'll give you, and this is random, but if you listen to my conversation with the Treasure DAO team, I did it a few weeks ago. They were talking about liquidity pools. It's a concept. We're not going to go into it. We've already discussed it a few times, but your position in a liquidity pool is an NFT. And so they were assigning utility within the game to the NFT that represents your stake within a liquidity pool. And these are like super interesting, like fundamental uses of economic primitives that actually make sense, right? A liquidity pool is useful. It provides liquidity, as the name suggests. And so my point is, I agree with Nat. The way he phrases it might be just clickbaity, right? But I agree with it, right? The way things are being done right now is suboptimal. And my point is, I agree. I don't think we should do away with staking. I think the locking value up for a certain amount of time is a useful primitive, something people can use to design around or design with. But I agree that we're looking too much at what has been done and using that as an inspiration for new games. Was that an okay answer, David? What do you think?
I'm satisfied with that answer.
Good. Thank you.
What I was going to say, John Jordan
from the professor.
That's right. See me after for your diploma. It's going to be good. John Jordan has this phrase. John Jordan's a journalist that's been documenting blockchain for a while. Says, is it a bug? Is it a feature? Which is, and a lot of things that you look in, there's so many broken things about the world of blockchain games that you say, well, that's a bug that needs to be fixed. But also it's the thing that's sort of interesting about it. So sure, there's some things that don't quite add up when you write it all down and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But that also is the thing that makes it interesting. Why is it why is it attractive to people? Why is it interesting? Why are we talking about it? That suggests to me that there's something cool there. And all right, yes, it might not be optimized. The other sort of connected point is that I think in game design, I've worked with a lot of game designers. I sometimes when you say, I don't think that, or, playing something doesn't feel quite right, some designers will take a incremental step to fixing it. Maria will know what I'm talking about, which is like, oh, we'll adjust this a little bit. Another strategy is to just go too far the other way. Just go all the way down here and now see what happens. And then maybe the answer is somewhere in the middle, or maybe it's not. Maybe you even have to go further. But I think that, what's described in that article is a lot of weird new game design ideas that have just pulled video game mechanics ideas in a completely different direction. And so I wouldn't be too quick to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's taken us to a really interesting place. And, there may be a few corrections here and there, but I think that I wouldn't be sad about anything in that article. I think they're all interesting game ideas that got us to a new place in the games industry. So I'm not ready to pass judgment too heavily on what's come before.
I completely agree. And my position about companies that are exploring this space, they're brave, they're facing this unknown world, being experimental, trying to adapt concepts into gaming that exist elsewhere. You're going to fail, you're going to have to improve, and you'll find things that don't work and then find how to make them work. And I don't know if the content is amazing. When I read it, I thought, wow, someone's pulled together all of my different strains of thought and put it in an article. That was very interesting to read. I don't know if the way it was written was clickbaity, or if, I don't know Nat personally. I don't know, maybe it was frustrated when he wrote this. I agree that there are problems, but it's not broken. We need to understand the root causes and then improve it over time with experimentation. Like you're saying, David, it's game design. We'll experiment and find what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's why I want to comment on a few things that are in the article, because I worked at Jagex. I didn't work specifically on RuneScape, but I have enough knowledge about the player base where I want to refute some of the things that are in the article.
Do it.
So, for example, in the much of the play to earn is bullshit work, sorry for my language. It mentions RuneScape, where in MMOs you go and mining for copper and you're just doing clicks and it's boring because you're earning from logging in every few hours to click a few buttons, where the game could just remove all of that unnecessary activity and then focus on the fun stuff. Players are into this AFK style playing and going into the game. Look at Everdale.
Yeah,
Everdale is turning.
The clicking is like the fun stuff.
Yeah, Everdale is turning this concept around his head, where before you wanted to maximize player sessions, and Everdale is trying to maximize check-ins. Because there are players who, just like we scroll our feeds on Twitter, on Instagram, we like that mental break, and we just want to go do this physical movement that feels nice. And you can be watching your series, or you could be cooking. You open RuneScape and you go and do these menial activities, and you feel good. It's fun. So there are different kinds of fun out there, and so you can target your game to those player segments. And yeah, RuneScape players are into the clicking. Let me find the.
There's a lot of gatekeeping about a fun in the games industry. I've seen that a lot, where people say that's not fun. Remember when Farmville came along and say, well, that's not a real game, or the Wii isn't a real game, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if people are having a fun time with it, then it's fun.
Yeah, there's different.
Don't overanalyze it.
There are different kinds of fun. Sorry, this is my last point. So within free-to-play game, we're not trying to keep the player forever having things to do in the game. A lot of the free-to-play game design mechanics come from timers, from refreshing attempts. So it creates a style of play where you're expected to leave and not burn out. Because that's a really important thing about games. It's like, not for all games. You don't want your player to be there for 8 hours a day, because they'll go through the content and you don't have enough of a content treadmill. They'll get bored, they'll get burnt out from the mechanics. And so you want to control their experience to go and come back. And so not limiting play, I don't think it's entirely true. And we've seen that be very successful in free-to-play games where, you can have fun, you can do earning, but you can't play it all the time. And this is what makes me really excited about free-to-play game developers trying to do games in blockchain and people from different backgrounds merging all of their knowledge. Yeah, well, we'll find this together.
The one idea that that really stuck out to me, and I feel is probably going to be it's going to be like an ongoing thing with these blockchain economies, is this point about that he makes about separating the internal and external economies.
I knew you were going to say this.
And yeah, I mean, this is I think Aaron mentioned it in the last podcast, but so Elo from our consulting team, so shout out to Elo, she actually, on a project that we were doing about like 3 months back, she actually came up with this idea also herself, where she was just like, coming from free to play roots, she was just questioning like, why the hell does a currency like SLP need to be on chain? Like, why are you affecting your internal economy by something that is affected by, market forces outside? Why can't it be in a world where you have SLP off chain, it's completely working internally, and you have, AXS or your governance token on chain? And that's like the most valuable thing in the game. It's used for like the biggest moves that you can make in the game in terms of progression. And it's also used, utility in terms of governance, etc. And I was playing reviewer on that project, and when I heard the idea, I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know why it's right. Not happening like that. Yeah,
I have something to say about that. And similarly, this is a critique of some Naavik research as well, so don't take the start. But sometimes I think that when you analyze something, Nico will remember a time we were at an event when the Axie Naavik deconstruction was just released. Do you remember that? Which is a very thorough, what do you call it, reverse engineering of the economy of Axie, and saying, hey, it doesn't make sense and it's not fun. So, or something along those lines. And Nico actually put the question to Alex, who's sorry. It's a great piece. Sorry, but Nico put the point to Alex at Sky Mavis at this event, and he says, "You don't understand why people are playing it." He didn't refute anything in the article, but he said that's you don't understand the power of community. And I think that sometimes when you analyze games, you're trying to make it add up like some kind of formula, and it doesn't work like that. It's other things that you can't really rationalize. Why do people play Farmville and Cow Clicker and all those things? Why are they interesting? Why do people play? It shouldn't be. There's nothing sensible about that, but there is something that's. So I'm when I hear about new game ideas like that are clearly popular, people like it, then I'm not quick to say that they're bad ideas. I'm more interested in finding out what it is that's appealing to people.
I guess there's like even in games building, there's an art portion of it, which is the more like the more flimsy stuff that maybe people would like discard when they hear it for the first time, or they don't understand when they get it. There's the art portion of it, which probably is all the game design, but there's definitely the science portion of it also. And if there were game design laws for blockchain games, probably one of the laws would be that there's more money coming into the system than there is like leaving the system. And to achieve that law and economic sustainability, I mean, you could think about it like scientifically and break it down. And this separating the internal and external economies part of it is a step in that direction. I mean, if these blockchain games are going to be, or if they want to be like long-term sustainable economies running for 10 plus years and basically everything that Nico wants in this world, and so, then I think there is a portion of it that can be thought about as like a science. And this specific point I feel is going to be like pretty important towards those sustainable blockchain game economies. But yes, while Axie was there, you're right. Like Axie is definitely like played its role, right? Why people played it? I mean, the kind of money that they were making when they were able to make that kind of money, that was all well and good, but now they aren't.
Well,
and
here's the thing: they're still playing. Right, so yes, okay. The DAOs
I don't know.
dropped
Like
off a
actually,
bit,
I would like question the whole community thing now. Like I remember like Alex actually saying that, and he also like commented the same on the LinkedIn post. But I mean, at least like from what I'm seeing in the community, like I don't think sentiment is really the same anymore. A lot of like.
What do you think, Nico?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know exactly what I have something to say about the subject, but not with regards to specifically what's happening in the community at Axie. But and I feel like this will probably like this could be its own episode in itself, right? Where you talk about separating the internal and external economies. And again, like this is something that I think, I get the idea, but I would frame it differently. For me, the point that he makes is your game should be fun and people should enjoy playing, whether the token is worth one fraction of a cent or $10, right? That's the point that he's making. And I don't think that is an issue of internal and external economies or even with the blockchain, because there is a thing called a stable coin. And, we all know what stable coins are because you listened to last week's episode, right? So, and you also know that they're risky. Okay, that's maybe not the best thing to bring up, right? But my point is that there is a way to even keeping your game open or your game economy open to make sure that it's like that there's still like a stable value wherever it's generated or absorbed or like however it's designed. And so my point is that you can my point, the way I would phrase this is don't let your game be dependent or be careful that the fun of your game is not influenced by high fluctuations in the value of the token more than, separate the internal and external economies, because there's way around it using the tools that exist on the blockchain today.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think there's definitely like not one way to do it. The stablecoin idea is actually also pretty interesting. I think Skyweavers also implemented it like that. It's an idea that I haven't really looked into too much, but I will.
It makes the Ponzinomics very hard. So it's I think it's good for sustainable games at least.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, highly recommend the article.
We're over the time.
Everyone should read it.
Yeah, I feel we do need to bring this topic back. I have more going through my mind as well.
I'm telling you, crypto is so interesting. It's fantastic.
And free to play.
There was supposed to be a limit on crypto topics on these roundtables, and I think we're breaking that. It's 2/3.
It's because you and I are on
talking about DAOs.
This was free to play merged with crypto.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
A little bit.
The boundaries, looking at the market, the boundaries are starting to become fuzzy.
I agree.
It's becoming very, very hard to have this very clear-cut distinction between the two.
Interesting.
If you want to join the conversation, join us on the Naavik Discord. David already, incentivized Nico to have more spicy conversations on Discord. Maybe about chicken, maybe not. Who knows? Yeah, and if you want to have access to all of this research that we've been talking about, you can become a member of Naavik Pro. Visit the Naavik website to find out more. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining. That was a very interesting discussion.
And use the code Metacast for a 10% discount.
Boom. Hey. That's why we need Manu on. He shares the discounts.
That's a reward for listening right till the end of the podcast.
Exactly. Suffer through this.
Take your time, get a Metacast 10% discount.
There you go. Good one.
Right. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.